Boy, am I excited about our next guest as our list of all-star guests continues. And Rece Davis, certainly an all-star of ESPN GameDay fame and all sorts of other stuff. I knew Rece Davis back when he was in Columbus, Georgia. I was in Birmingham, Alabama. And our paths would always cross when Alabama would play Auburn, not just in football, but virtually everything. And that takes us back. Rece, that was a long time ago, but it's great to see you. Thanks for carving out the time for us today.
Oh, my pleasure, Doug. Great to see you as well.
Do you remember those days?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, would see all of the guys from Birmingham who were in the big fancy markets when I was in Columbus, Georgia, going to the weekly Pat Dye press conferences
Yes.
at Auburn because Columbus is, for those who don't know, is only about 40 minutes maybe
Right.
from Auburn. And they were in our area of dominant influence, our market, as they called it. So we
Right.
covered Auburn extensively, and we'd go over there and hear Coach Dye I think it was Tuesday. Was it Tuesdays, Monday? I
Yeah,
think
it
it
was
was Tuesday.
Tuesday.
He did his press conference. And we'd go over there and he'd go, they're a fine, fine football team. We're going to have to be sound in the kicking game if Auburn is going to get a victory on Saturday. So it was a good time. So, yeah, I remember it well.
Yeah, times have changed a little bit in the college football realm, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But first things first, last week was the big PGA Championship, ESPN involved with the broadcasting. Rece, I think you were the only guy from ESPN not on that broadcast. You might, I
They
mean, that
don't.
was
Yeah, they very wisely keep me away from the golf broadcast, just like most of the golf courses. Once I go and visit with friends, because I'm not a member anywhere. Once I go, they go, "Would you do us a favor and never come back here again, please?" So they keep me away from the golf broadcast. That's a smart move on their part, a wise one on mine, because was it the outlaw Josie Wales that said a man's got to know his limitations or something like that? So that's good. But yeah, it was great coverage. Jeff Darlington and
oh wow,
others. I mean, Bob Wischusen, was
yes,
right there when the whole incident happened with Scotty Scheffler. And actually, I ran into a couple of days after I ran in to another player on tour who was not playing PGA in the airport, and he was like, "Man," he said, "of all the people." He's like, I know Scotty pretty well, and he was like, that's the last guy I would have ever anticipated having something like that happen to him. But Jeff and everybody involved did a great job with the coverage there.
yeah, it was unbelievable. It really was. And Jeff Darlington's video on his phone, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that was unbelievable as this case continues, and we won't talk about that, but that is going to be a crazy situation now, I think, for weeks to come. Speaking of golf, Nick Saban, Coach Saban, who will be on Game Day, Rece, he is playing golf virtually every day with some big name people every day.
Once he gets his chores done. He
Yes.
told me, and I think he told a lot of other people too. He said, "I do my chore list. I finish by 9, so I can go play golf." So he's really enjoying it. And we are very excited about having him on the show. He's going to bring an element to the show that makes it completely different. Not only is he brilliant, obviously, in the X's and O's, he is a masterful communicator, no matter what the setting is. And I'm really, really excited to have him on the show. He understands team. He really wants to be a part. And there are a lot of people, Doug, who come into our industry, and I realize, and you and I both realize this. I think we're not breaking rocks here. I mean, I understand
Right.
we're not splitting atoms, and I understand that. But it's probably fairly easy to accomplish, but it is extraordinarily difficult to be good at. And the reason I say that is because there are a lot of factors that go into being good. And part of them are subjective. I mean, you and I could watch 10 tapes of people, and chances are we'd probably agree on 7 or 8 as to whether we thought they were good or not good. And then there would probably be one tape each way, somebody that you were like, nah. And I would be, no, no, no. That person is sensational. So there's a subjective quality to whether people think you're good at this or not. But there's also a high degree of difficulty to actually be good at it and not just sit out there and talk.
Mm.
And a lot of people, when they come from the playing or coaching side, say, "Well, I was a great player, I was a great coach. I'm going to sit out here and do it." That's not how he's approaching it, as I'm sure that comes as no surprise to you. He absolutely worked his backside off getting ready for the NFL draft. I mean, it was like he was, preparing for a game. And he's going to do the same thing with game day. And we even have some things that he and I have talked about with our producers, an idea to really dive into his X and O expertise and give people something really specific and insightful to look for in a game or two each week. We're going to set up a cool studio situation. Some of it we may have to tape the day before the show, maybe not. Maybe we do it live. All of that is still to be ironed out. But we want to play into his expertise. In addition to the fact that I think he's going to be just a great part of the team. He likes to bust chops. He's got a great sense of humor. So we're really looking forward to having him on.
Yeah, I'm excited. I really am. And I've known Coach Saban a long time. And you're right. Everything you just said, he's going to bring an element that the show hasn't had. Not that it's been it's a successful show, but it's always good to add something different. And I think he'll do that. Hey, tell me, how's Coach Corso doing?
He's doing great, Doug. I was with him in Chicago on Saturday night. There was an event, and some people were nice enough to ask LC and Desmond and me to come up, and we also brought Ken Jeong into the mix with us. So it was not your typical XO panel, but we had a great time. LC's doing sensational. He was great in front of the crowd. We look forward to to him being back. He'll be 89 by the time the season starts, and he's just doing great. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, that's great news. I know Coach Belichick hasn't been hired by anybody, and I'm not saying ESPN should, but I did think last year for the Army-Navy game when he came on the set with you guys and he brought the old helmet, I think Roger Staubach wore it, and he actually put it on. I thought he showed a lot of personality. I thought that was an incredible segment. I really enjoyed that.
Well, thank you. And when we thank Bill, he was terrific also, and he's got a lot like Nick, different personalities. Even though I know they're close friends, but he has a lot of personality also, and I think he's going to be a regular on the Manning cast and with Pat McAfee. I think he was on Pat's draft show that they did on the side and got absolute rave reviews. And so, both of these guys, it sort of shows that you think people on the outside, and then you get to see a different dimension of them when they're put in a new setting. And I think Bill could be a great broadcaster. Now, he may still have the itch to go back and coach. I don't know that. I don't know him well enough to know what his personal plans are. But based on the early returns with his involvement with Pat and the times that we've had him on the show, I think he could be great in broadcasting. I've told this story. We had Bill on. Kirk and I called a game the year of the lockdowns at BYU Navy, and there was not a soul in the stadium. And so we, because of Bill's connection to the Naval Academy, we thought, it was close to the NFL season starting too. We thought, well, maybe we can get him on the phone. And he was gracious enough to come on the phone. And we thought, okay, maybe we'll get 2 or 3 minutes. Well, he starts talking about Navy football, and he stayed through an entire drive. We had to go to commercial, asked him to say, he said, sure. And he said, and he is encyclopedic in his knowledge of football generally and Navy football specifically. And, he showed a different side as opposed to, we're on to Cincinnati that you got at the news conferences a lot. And I think, if he chooses to do that, he's got a chance to really be good at it as well, for a lot of the same reasons I said about Nick, in that he doesn't really go in and half-step anything. And that sort of, I don't want to veer off into some type of motivational message, but I think that sort of stands to reason in just about anything you do. If you go at it, then you achieve at a higher level, generally speaking, or you at least satisfy yourself that you have done the best job you can do. And that's what, it's what my experience with Nick is. And it seems to be the same thing with things other than football with Bill Belichick as well.
You mentioned Kirk, Herbstreit, and back at the Genesis Invitational, I was working that PGA event and interviewed Al Michaels, who's a great guy, by the way. And of course, he works with Kirk on the NFL Thursday deal.
Mm-hmm.
And he brought up a point, Rece. He said, listen, he doesn't think Kirk gets enough credit for what he's doing, preparing for an NFL game and then flying to do game day. And he said, what he does for a 14 or 15 week period, Al said, I mean, we take it for granted, right? He's just flying around doing all this stuff. But he said the prep work that he does to maintain a level of excellence and expertise for not just college, but now the NFL. I mean, I thought it was fascinating. And Al, and that's coming from a guy who's been doing it a long time, Al Michaels.
Well, Al's right about that. I mean, because Kirk, nothing has suffered, which is almost impossible.
Yeah.
Because, as mentioned earlier, now what he's doing from a travel standpoint does take a bit of a physical toll in terms of just, general fatigue. But not one thing has suffered in terms of preparation, involvement, both not only, for game day and his NFL game, which my only knowledge of what that preparation is like is watching the games, and he's sensational, which he always is.
Right.
But when he comes to game day, he's locked in. He's locked in with, constant communication with me and with our producer, Jim Galliero, throughout the week. And then you watch the game on Saturday night that he calls with Fowler, and, he's terrific there too. He's locked in on all of it. And a lot of it is because he's driven. He doesn't want anybody to be able to say that he's let anything slip. Now, a lot of that's the way he's wired. And he just does it sensationally. And it is a lot. I mean, it is a lot on his plate. And then game day, because of his long affiliation with it, he would know precisely, I want to say 26 years, maybe 27, something like that. Or, maybe even, it might be longer now. But at any rate, it's a long time. And he has an affinity for that. And he is not about to step back from his role in it, because I think one of the things that I like about doing the show, and it's how I've always approached doing things, is I don't show up on Saturday or on Friday and have them say, okay, here's what we're talking about. I'm involved with that all week long, really basically from about 12:01 on Saturday Eastern time, and Kirk's the same way. I mean, we are both intimately involved with helping structure the show. Now, we've got great producers. I mean, Gallero's as good as they come. But, and he works with us as a team. And, everybody has input. But I think because of my role as a host and Kirk's longevity on the show, we are particularly, involved in topics, how we handle topics, ideas, and, all of those types of things.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have a great deal of respect for all you guys. And I know the work that you put in, but what really comes out is the chemistry you have on the show. I mean, you guys needle each other. Obviously, you like each other. You bring out the best in each other. Sometimes, Rece, you ask questions, and sometimes they throw things at you. And you come back right back at them. So it is great banter, and that's why the show's been so successful. And now, as you told me before we came on, I'd forgotten you guys are going to open up in Dublin, Ireland for game day.
Yeah.
Now that'll be worth the wait and worth the watch for all of us.
It's always fun to go places where we haven't been, or places where they don't expect us. And I think that Dublin would top the list of places where they don't expect us. But from our advanced people who've gone over to see what, get the lay of the land, logistics, site surveys, all of those types of things that people have to do every week, but you have to do that well in advance when you're going with an undertaking like this. And from Jay Batt, who's the athletic director at Georgia Tech, who went over and he sent me a note and said, man, they are so excited here. It's going to be a great scene. I mentioned to you before we started talking that we were supposed to go in 2020 and to the Notre Dame Navy game. And then I had seen at that time, I guess it was 2019, they had sent back ideas of what the set was going to look like, what the backdrop of the stadium was, and it just looked breathtaking. It was sensational. And I'm from what I've seen so far, it's going to be the same. The people of Dublin have really embraced this game. They've had a college game a number of times over the years early in the season. And to have two teams, you automatically think it's going to be Notre Dame, but it's not, Georgia Tech and Florida State. So it'll be a great way to start the season. I think the fans are the ones who are traveling, and I've run into a few of those too who are excited about going to the game. So, I think it's going to be a great show and a great way to kick off the season.
Well, I work on golf a lot, obviously, and I've gotten to know Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry and Padraig Harrington. And I will say, I'm not sure who the friendlier group of people are, the Irish or the Australians. You're going to have so much fun because the people, they really are very, very friendly and outgoing. And it's almost like you guys are relatives. When you go over there, Rece, you're going to love it. The people are fantastic.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it, Doug. I think that gives you a great backdrop and great sense of the show. And obviously, we will do everything we can to capture the spirit of the city. It will be largely a season preview show. There will be probably more time than normal spent on the game that will be played, Georgia Tech and Florida State. And by more time than normal, I mean for a typical week 0 show. But It will also function as our season preview show. So that'll be a good way to start. And we expect to have a great crowd with us and behind us. And we'll try to, give them some special moments. I'm sure Pat McAfee will be a crowd favorite in Dublin as he is everywhere he goes. So we're fired up about unleashing that on our friends from Ireland. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, Pat is an absolute hoot. When you guys set up in Tuscaloosa, oh my goodness. And of course, I still live down here, and people go over and they come back with Pat McAfee stories. And they're all positive. They're just, he's outlandish, and I just, he's unique, to say the least, Rece.
It's hard in this business to find someone who is, but yes. Pat is. First of all, he's extraordinarily smart. This is a really, really smart dude, first of all. And his instincts are remarkable, and his connection with crowds. Here's probably the quintessential story. Now, the younger demographic, they knew Pat before he joined us. His show was wildly popular with younger people, but some of the older people didn't know who he was. Maybe if they were really hardcore football fans. Maybe they might remember him, playing at West Virginia or playing for the Colts or whatever. But my wife's aunt is in her mid to late 80s, and she's, a college football fan. She's always supported, me in the show and watched every week and all of that. And when Pat first came on, she had no idea who he was, and she was a little taken aback / maybe put off initially. Wasn't sure she liked this guy. Over a period of about half of the first season, I think she likes Pat more than she likes me. Now she waits to watch Pat. She loves Pat. She's in her late 80s and she loves him. And typically that's what happens with people who watch a little bit more with him, or certainly people who have personal interactions. When we were at Utah this year, Friday, he brought the guys out to do his show live from Salt Lake City, and they'd done the show. And he stayed out there, Doug, and signed and took every last picture, for everybody that wanted to, friendly, and not just, the casual thing. He would engage with people. He's got a gift for that. And, he's extraordinarily generous. He's fun. He's just a dynamic personality and a force of nature, and the business empire that he's built in this media environment is really, really something to marvel at.
Yeah, he's unique for a lot of reasons, but I think we need to emphasize he's not just a guy who does funny stuff on television. He's a businessman.
And he's also, his generosity, is remarkable. You probably saw the other day, he bought a car off that Mecum auctions. I'm not real familiar with that. I sort of know it by osmosis. I know, the auction car. He bought a car for a dude. His generosity is really something to be, to be impressed by and to appreciate. and he's got great instincts for people. He's just a good dude. Loves his daughter and loves his wife. He's relatively new father now, and just couldn't be a better dude. He's fit in very well with us. We're happy to have him.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, I have to ask you this before I let you go because, friends are like, oh, you're going to interview Rece Davis. Everybody knows you, Rece. I don't know if you know all of my friends, but they think they know you. And listen, these are longtime Alabama football fans, and obviously lots happening right now. I'm not going to have you decipher this very complicated House versus the NCAA. Grant House, by the way, a swimmer who is involved in this lawsuit that the NCAA is now trying to negotiate a settlement, antitrust, etc. Go read about it. It's somewhat complicated. But evidently, Rece, these athletes, current and past, are going to get a payout in some capacity to go along with the NIL deals that are now unfolding almost on a daily basis, not just in football and basketball, but all sports. Even golfers, college golfers are getting NIL money. But Rece, my friend was concerned. He said, listen, I've been going to Alabama football games for 45 years. He goes, I love it. And I'm not going to stop going. But he goes, he feels a change in the current of college athletics because it is going to be professionalism. If it's not already, with this current settlement of the case, it's going to be even more so. I mean, Rece, are we delving into murky waters that is going to eventually damage the sport, or do you just think it'll survive like it always has, no matter what has stood in the way of college athletics?
The answer, Doug, that I've always given is the second part, that it will always survive, because my initial reaction over the last few years as things have changed is I won't say cynical, but players have been getting paid since the beginning of time. We just sort of, covered our eyes and pretended we didn't know, and I don't mean the media, I mean fans, right. Everybody, if it bothered people, it was a lot like, and still is in a lot of ways, like going to the movies. Well, Tom Cruise can't hold on to the wing of an airplane at 30,000 feet and live to tell about it, but we like to watch it. And so we suspend some disbelief and enjoy it. So I think it's a little bit like that. The one thing I do worry about, though, that I do take seriously, that a lot of my more hardcore colleagues on this dismiss, is the feeling that your friend brought up about a feeling of disconnection with the fans. Now, and I don't think it's just because players make money. I don't think people do on a grand scale, or should care about that. That doesn't compromise education. It doesn't compromise competitive spirit. It, in and of itself, for individuals, anything can be true, but collectively, it doesn't compromise any of that. But if fans feel like the team they're rooting for is purely transactional, that they don't have the affinity for the school or the program that they do on some level, and it will always mean more to the players than it does to the fans because of what they put into it every day. But if the fans believe that to them that the players they're watching don't have the same level of emotional attachment, then I think the demand for performance and standard of achievement from the fans toward the players and the team becomes higher. It becomes like what? Pro. Okay, so now you don't care as much, and now you look at it and go, wait a minute, Alabama and Auburn, they're great, but they're not as good at football as the Falcons or the Jaguars. So wait, what? And I don't get asked, to kick in more money to a collective to watch, the Saints. So in this football, I mean, these players are good. They're good young players, but they're not as good. Now I'm talking 20 years down the road. This is not going to happen next year, year after next. But if you gradually erode the things that make college football special, the traditions, the nostalgia, the connection with the fans through, the fuddy-duddy school spirit, go State U. If right. You erode that to the point that it's non-existent, then I think you risk damaging the entire enterprise. But in the near future, I don't think we're in danger of that. The leaders just need to take a broad vision. Players deserve to be paid. They deserve their name, image, and likeness rights. It's probably high time, not probably, I do think it's high time that revenue sharing comes into it, because I think the revenue sharing, if negotiated, can alleviate some of these legal battles if it is collectively bargained. The thing, and I talked to Rod Gilmore, who is one of our college football analysts, right, and he's also an attorney, really smart guy, and one of my closest friends. And I said, look, you're the lawyer, I'm not. I said, but my instinct here is if they decide, okay, here's the $2.7 billion that the NCAA is going to give in back pay. Here is the cap on revenue sharing. I said, what's to stop, a few years down the road, another group say, wait a minute, I didn't bargain for this revenue sharing model. I didn't bargain for this percentage. It should be a higher percentage. I said, and then we have another court case come. I said, what's to stop that? And he said, you might not be a lawyer, but your legal instincts are pretty good. And so that is something that, even if this gets settled, which it appears it's going to, I don't think that it necessarily is the end. It might calm the waters for a period of time, but I don't think it necessarily is the end. So I just want us to be able to do right by the players, share money with them because they do have value. That might mean the coaches don't get paid quite as much as they do. Now, I don't begrudge them any money either, because they are the ones responsible for all of it, and they are the constants in the sport. But maybe that's where some of the revenue comes from. Instead of 13 million, maybe you make 9. Instead of 9, maybe you make 6. And and some of that goes to the players. But I think ultimately, to get a stable situation, it's going to have to be collectively bargained. I do think the players deserve a lot of money. They've created value. The industry, that's what it is. It's an industry. It's a business, and it has been for a long time. We'll survive. We'll figure it out. I've got confidence in that, but I do hope that great care is taken to protect the tradition and the nostalgia and the things that set college football apart from professional sports.
Well, well said. And I mean, when you're talking about billion-dollar television contracts, it is about time that the athletes do receive their fair share. And I will tell you this, Rece, a friend of mine, I was playing golf. I don't get to play that much anymore because I'm always traveling, but it was a par 5. And he said, can you explain this house versus the NCAA? I said, I doubt by the end of the par 5, I'm going to be able to do it. I'll try to give you a snapshot. And then after that par 5, I said, let's talk about something else, because this is just way too complicated, I mean, you did a great job, but it's a crazy story.
In our conversations, and Gilmore won't be able to stick to this because of his legal background, but he said, I've set the deadline on myself personally of June 1st. He said, after June 1st, he said, I'm just going to talk about football on the field. And I'm like, that's a noble effort, Rodney. I said, but I don't think, given your expertise, you're going to be able to stick to that completely. So,
yeah, crazy times we're living in. Hey, Rece, for the rest of the summer before you get ready for game day, you and the family traveling? Is that the plan? Just take some time off?
Yeah, we'll have a few things that I'm required to do here and there, but sure, it's a good time. Once we go through football and basketball and the NFL draft, this is a good time for us. We'll hang out and travel around a little bit and try to get the kids' schedule in such a way that we can all be together as much as we can. So yeah. It'll be a low key time, at least until things start ramping up again in mid-July or so.
Yeah, much deserved time off. Rece, we appreciate the time, my friend. And it's great to catch up. And it's been really my fault I haven't at least dropped you a text or something over these years. But time flies with all this goes on, as you know.
It does indeed. It's great to talk to you. Always great to see you. And congratulations on all your success, Doug. You're a good dude, and I appreciate you.